There's a version of your life that keeps trying to get your attention. It doesn't shout, it doesn't force itself, it whispers. Maybe it comes through when you're finally still, when the noise quiets, when you let yourself imagine what's actually possible. And in those moments, you see it. You see yourself writing the best selling book, building the company, leading at a level that impacts thousands, maybe millions, maybe billions, creating wealth, freedom, and a life that feels fully aligned, not split between success and presence, but integrated. You see yourself there. And at that exact same time, something else kicks in: doubt, minimizing. Who am I to want to do that? Is that actually realistic? Maybe later. Maybe that's nice for someone else. So you go back to what's familiar, what's proven, and what feels safe to you. And the whisper starts to fade just long enough to keep you where you are. But here's what I want you to know today, and the truth: that vision that you keep seeing and that desire that keeps returning, it's not random, it's not too much, and it's not here by accident. It's a calling. And the only reason it feels out of reach is because of the version of yourself you're still choosing to be, because the gap between where you are and what you know you're actually meant for. It's not strategy, it's not resources, it's not timing, it's identity. And in today's episode, we're going to break down what it actually means to become available for the next level that's trying to be born through you, the subtle ways you may be blocking it, the patterns that keep you playing smaller than your actual truth, and the shift that allows everything to begin moving. Because the moment that you decide fully, cleanly, and without apology that you are available for your calling, everything starts to reorganize around that decision. So let's go there. I am excited for this conversation today, and I'm going to weave in some personal stories throughout my life, especially over the past 6 years, of moments where I made a decision to no longer play small, where I made a decision to listen to the calling that was on my heart. I'll also share some stories from within our community because I see this happening all the time. And I wanted to record this episode for you specifically today because I know if you are listening to this, there is very likely something wanting to be born through you right now, something greater that's wanting to come through. But the small self or the ego mind or our inner child who hasn't caught up with where we really are in life and what's safe for us yet and what's normal for us can say, well, who am I to do that? Or, oh, that's crazy. That's for them. That's not for me. And I remember having this experience. We actually wrote about it in a book that I co-authored with some of my community called Permission to Be Powerful. I encourage you to go read it if this speaks to you. But this was really the beginning of my quantum leap journey about, gosh, 6 years ago now, of what was the impetus for me getting unstuck in a lot of ways and building and launching my company. Having this experience where I had just had my son, he was about 4 months old at the time, and I had been someone up until that point she'd made a lot of changes in her life. I had shifted out of a really toxic, unhealthy marriage. I had overcome an eating disorder. I'd become an entrepreneur, left the corporate grind, done a lot of things that were meaningful and important to me. And yet I still felt stuck in so many ways. And I had a vision board that I would look at all the time, and it had things on it like being a New York Times bestselling author or running a multi-million dollar company or speaking on big stages or being a philanthropist. And whenever I would look at my vision board, I would feel this quiet sense of frustration, this quiet feeling, and almost a subconscious dismissiveness of, well, that's for other people, but not for me, which was what was creating the frustration. And at the time, I was supporting a lot of best-selling authors, world-famous entrepreneurs, some of the top podcasters in the world with building and growing their brands through the work I was doing, which is extremely powerful and an honor and a beautiful part of my life and something I'm grateful for. And simultaneously, There was something in me that kept feeling this calling and this nudge to do that, but I would make them special and say, well, they're more qualified. They know more than I do. They're older than I am. They're younger than I am. They were born into money. They had this, all the reasons we say someone can do something and we can't. And around this time, my good friend who was my podcast co-host, one of my podcast co-hosts, had passed away in his sleep at age 39. I wasn't that much younger than him. And I remember kind of having this light bulb moment that I was doing what I now call putting my life on layaway, saying those things that are the desires on my heart are speaking to me, but I'll do them another time. I'll do them when I don't have a 4-month-old son. I need to be more qualified. I'm not ready yet. And I just realized in that moment, I had been waiting for someone. I don't know who. I never stopped to identify who I was waiting for, but some um, nebulous being of authority to come tell me that I could go for it the same way my clients were going for it, or that it was time for me in the same way, or that I was qualified. And I just kind of woke up in that moment and realized, holy moly, I hope I have a lot more time. But if I don't, I think I was 35 at the time. I thought if I have 4 years left to live and I died and I hadn't done these things I wanted to do, how would I feel about my life? There would have been so much left on the table that I hadn't done, that I hadn't pursued, that I hadn't gone for, that had been a calling in my heart. And so it was in that moment I made a non-negotiable declaration to stop playing small. And here's something I want to pull out for you right now. It is one thing to talk about it and say, I want this kind of life. I want this kind of business. I want this prosperity. I want this impact. I want to create this future for my kids, for my partner. It is a very different thing to actually live it and to take the actions that are required to live it, because they require the older version of you to get extremely uncomfortable. And when I decided I was done playing small, I went on a radical journey of clearing out anything that no longer served and saying yes to things that scared the pants off of me. Things like investing $50,000 in coaching when I'd made 100,000 the year before and I didn't have the money. Things like going online and singing publicly on social media after I hadn't sang publicly for probably 2 decades, because I the last performance I had was in college and I'd been sexually assaulted right before that, and I totally croaked on stage and it was a very embarrassing feeling moment, so I kinda shrank and stopped showing that part of me. But my mentor and my coaching, she was like, "You've gotta be out there, be public, be visible, do this." So I got myself out of my comfort zone and I did it. Launching a group coaching program when I had major limiting beliefs. I couldn't imagine a whole group of women would wanna work with me at one time. But it was in that incubator and kind of pressure cooker of saying, I am going to get incredibly uncomfortable and finally do the things I knew I would do if I knew my success was guaranteed, that something shifted. And I went from being stuck at the same level of income for over 10 years, grinding, hustling for that money, for that $100,000 a year, to 10xing in 6 weeks, to turning my annual income into my monthly income, to creating a life of freedom and prosperity for my family, to retiring my husband so he could pursue his dream of medical school, to doing the things that had been on my vision board, buying an RV for our family to travel around in, buying multiple homes, my dream home that we live in now. And it happened through deciding I was done playing small, following the calling on my heart, and realizing it wasn't accidental, realizing it wasn't there by accident. So, what I want to invite you to do first here is I want to invite you to pay attention to what keeps coming up for us. There are fleeting desires that might be passing and temporary and not really soul aligned. I'll give you an example. Last night, we went out to a hockey game. We took our kids to a hockey game. And at the game, they had these balloon animals that all the kids were getting. And we got there a little bit late. So we missed the time and the place where the kids were getting balloon animals. But my 5-year-old son is looking at all these kids with balloon animals. He's like, Mom, where do we get one? Where do we get one? And we couldn't get one because the guy had left for the night. But last night, my son became obsessed with balloon animals and even wrote a note about how he's going to manifest a balloon animal in his life, like, which I love because he knows this work deeply. He drew me a picture. He said, "Mom, I'm manifesting a balloon animal." I said, "Amazing." Now, here's what I know. A week from now, will that be as important to him? Probably not. Not that he won't get a balloon animal, not that I won't make it happen for him, not that I won't want to create the joy of that experience for him. But that's fleeting, that's temporary, that's very likely not something that he is going to be coming back to again and again. "Mom, when can we get the balloon animal? When can we get the balloon animal?" We as adults have things like that, things that are fleeting and temporary. "Oh, I'd love to do this, I'd love to do that." Nothing wrong with that. Those things can be fun to create, and there's nothing wrong with those desires, right? Maybe you're like, "Ooh, I wanna get a certain pair of shoes, or I wanna travel here, or do this or that." Nothing wrong with that. What I want you to pay attention to here, though, and this is where I really tune into, like, calling and purpose and destiny, those things that won't leave you alone. What are the things that when you close your eyes or when you're quiet with yourself, you can't stop thinking about and they keep coming back to you? Maybe it's building a certain type of business. Maybe it's having a certain amount of personal wealth, not for security or for validation, but because that feels like who you are. Maybe no one in your family's ever done that before, but you keep having a sense, a feeling of, I want to create generational wealth for my family. Maybe it's seeing yourself as an author, as a top world thought leader, as a speaker, as a top podcaster, having a family, raising your kids while simultaneously growing your business. What are the things that won't leave you alone, even if every limiting belief in you says, "Who are you to do this? You can't claim it. Other people are more qualified." Those are your divine destiny. They don't leave you alone because there is actually a reality where you are already living those things, where that is your reality. This is where we can start to get into some fun with quantum entanglement and quantum physics. And we're not going to go deep into that on this episode, but there's a lot of schools of thought, and this is how I look at it too and believe it, is that those things are happening because there is a reality, there is a timeline where you're living that now. And the reason you can't stop thinking about it is because it's that future pull of your higher self, God, source, universe, Buddha, Allah, Jesus, whatever your language is, telling you this is where you are meant to go next. This is your divine destiny, your divine calling. I turned 40 last year, and I was thinking about this last week. This hit me. I'm halfway to 80. Now, you may be younger than me, you may be older than me, but there was something about that where it really clicked for me that by the time I double my life, and I feel like it's been a blink already, which people say and is true. I didn't think about that as much in my 20s and 30s, but it is true. I will be 80. And not that there's not a lot more life I can live beyond that, because I can and I fully intend to. And that is a different season of life. And that is a different chapter of life. And it created this, when I say sense of urgency, I don't mean hurry. I don't mean scarcity. I don't mean hustle. I don't mean that. But to be as intentional as possible with the gift of life, knowing that we don't know how long we have, and it can end like that. And every single day that I've been given and that you've been given, I want to encourage us to actually look at, if I was the fullest expression of me today, if I fully gave of my gifts, if I fully surrendered to God's plan calling for my life, my higher self's vision for my life, again, insert your language there, how would I live? What would be possible? And I think it's really healthy to take inventory of your life on a regular basis and tune in. Are these fleeting desires or are these soul callings? And I do that regularly with myself. And I'm big on, like, I follow my desires. I let myself go for it. I buy the nice clothes, I buy the luxury stuff, I do that, like, because I know that that is part of what I love and that makes my soul happy. And for some of the things that can sometimes intimidate us or feel like, who am I to say that? when they keep coming back to you, it is because you are meant for it. And it is simply getting a smaller part of you up to speed with what is really possible for you and what is available for you. And realize that anyone who's making the impact you want to make, living life the way you want to live, they are no different than you, other than they chose themselves. I remember having this conversation last year. We were at our live event, Superhuman Selling Live, which is like my signature live event for the year. It's beautiful and powerful, and we change our lives in the course of a few days. And I was coaching one of my clients there. She's a leader in network marketing, and she had a vision for herself of leading a spectacular team, of creating many, many successful people in her organization, of being seen as a true leader. And yet a part of her was shrinking. A part of her was hiding. A part of her was in her comfort zone of being relatively invisible, which she wouldn't have wanted to admit, but she was honest with herself. She's like, "Yeah, this is where I'm comfortable." Not having to put herself out there too much, not being judged. She came from a background in medicine and healthcare and being a chiropractor, so there was a part of her who was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be judged for doing network marketing now, this or that." And we did a really powerful session where she released a lot of the beliefs about how shrinking or playing small was protecting her, and realizing that she was the only one who could give herself permission to actually stand up and attract people and show up and embody leadership the way she was meant to, which is what a woman who had the results she wanted would be doing. And it was so fun because not too long ago, she's in our consultant certification program. She got on one of our calls, one of our consultant calls, and she said, "Well, I quadrupled my income and I won a trip in 2 weeks that I had given myself 12 weeks for." She has multiplied her team. She's showing up at her company events like an absolute rock star. And the most beautiful thing is she has stepped into full ownership of who she is and what her calling is on her life. So that calling, that vision, again, I don't need to know exactly what it is. What I do know is that you have it. You have it on your heart. You have this pull for something more. Sometimes we've been taught or raised maybe in a religious background or upbringing that it's not okay to want more. I have a thing I call divine discontent. And I believe it was Bob Proctor who I heard that from initially. Perhaps. I can't even remember as I say this. It might have been Bob. It might have been a download. I don't remember. Anyway, we're going to give him credit because I think it came from him. But this idea that you can be so grateful for your life, that you can appreciate everything in your life, and yet you are still meant to grow towards something greater. And that growth, it's not just for personal gain, although that is okay. It is okay for you to be blessed and prospered as you grow. That's something a lot of times, again, we're taught we shouldn't want and should shrink from. No, I believe we are meant to live abundant, prosperous, beautiful lives. And if you have that desire in you, that's for you. And simultaneously, your growth and expansion, whether it's you writing a book, launching a business, is going to serve and change so many lives. And it is ego to not allow yourself to go do that, because that is the pull, the impulse of God, source, universe, and a lot of other people who you don't even know yet saying, "I need you to do this. I need to hear this from you. I am struggling with the very thing that you help people with. Why haven't you shown up yet? Why haven't you followed your calling?" Not that this is a guilt trip, but I want to give you a reframe. So I'm going to give you 3 steps to really, really claiming this and moving out of any sort of shrinking or playing small in your life. The first step, you must internally own your calling. You must internally own the thing that is showing up for you. So you can claim something halfway, right? That would be like saying, "I think I want to be a doctor, but I don't think I'm smart enough. I'm not sure. So I'm gonna kinda see. I'm gonna kinda see if opportunities show up. Um, I'm gonna kinda see if I connect with the right people. I don't know. Maybe I'll do it. Maybe I won't. I'm gonna make some excuses." No. You have to be 100% unapologetically Yes, this is happening. And you are the only one who can claim it for you. This is really important. Notice, do you energetically shrink when you claim something? I remember last year, and I've told this story on the podcast recently, I think, where I was really tuning into what's next for my life. And I kept hearing world thought leader, world thought leader. And that, how do I want to say it? I was intimidated by it. I felt a little embarrassed at it because I was like, who am I to say that? Really? And yet it kept coming through. When I really got quiet, I said, what is the greatest purpose of my life? Now, I didn't even really know what that meant or what it looked like. What I knew was I felt like there is a calling on my heart to use my voice and use my message and to be a channel, which I believe those of us in this type of work are, for spirit to speak through me and help serve as many people as possible. But when I first admitted it out loud, it was to a coach of mine on a VIP day that she was holding with me on my birthday, actually. And I said it quietly. She was like, what's the next level vision of your life? And I almost whispered, I was like, I think I'm meant to do this. I think I'm meant to be a world thought leader. And she said, Elise, she's like, of course you are. Why are you not saying it out loud? Like, can you just say it without apologizing? And in that moment, I realized how egotistical and arrogant it was to try to hide behind not fully owning it. And here's the thing, I understand if there's a part of you that feels like you are meant for more, there is a cultural paradigm that those who shine brightly are shot down, killed, canceled. I get it. Like, look, this is in the water, it's in the cultural paradigm. So there can be the greater part of you who says, yes, I'm available for this. I'm available for fame. I'm available to serve. And yet the small part of you, and not even the small part, but just the safety part of your brain says, is this safe for me? Can I do this? Can I do this and still be there for my kids, etc.? So I'm not making light of it. And I personally, and this is the work we do in our community too, I do a lot of work around safety, helping my body feels safe, my brain feels safe as I step into my calling. And this is important for us to do because this is one of the reasons people often don't realize they aren't making the money they want to make. Because if I don't actually have the money to invest in the company, invest in the podcast studio, go for the thing I want to go for, then I don't have to fully put myself out there and risk getting canceled, getting hated on, losing my partner, right? All the subconscious fears that we work through. So there's a lot to unpack here. Again, this is the type of work we do within my community and with our clients. But when you know there's a calling on your life, you must claim it fully. And I want to remind you, it is ego that says, don't go for it, don't show up, don't say it out loud. It is God, source, universe, spirit that inspires you to show up for it. And so we must be dedicated to something bigger than our lives if we are going to truly live to the fullest and grow and expand to our fullest potential. Half ownership will delay alignment. All right. Half ownership will delay alignment. So let's talk about the second step here, which is embodiment. So, what you do from this place is you start to say, all right, what result am I looking for? Maybe I feel a calling to create a multi-million dollar business and I want to homeschool my kids. These are some of the things I'm doing, which are really fun. Or maybe I feel the calling to launch one of the top podcasts in the world, or I want to be in my corporate job, but I want to be top of the leaderboard and I want to work 10 fewer hours a week. So I want to put that time into my family, whatever it is that's the calling. Don't focus on the fruit, focus on the root. So you must look at, okay, if first you've got to accept that it's a possibility. That's where looking at evidence of other people who are doing something similar helps your brain create a different blueprint and set point. And then you've got to look at, if I were to really do that, who is the type of person who does that? What are her or his beliefs? What are their feelings? And what are their actions? And then you focus on daily embodiment. Again, focus on the root, not the fruit, and the fruit will happen. And then the third step is identity. This becomes your identity. How do you know that the daily embodiment work, where you make different micro decisions, you tip more generously. I remember last week I was sitting and I was having lunch. I'd gone to a spa appointment. And afterwards, I was sitting having lunch by myself and I was just doing some contemplation and reflection. And I wrote like a normal 20% tip. And then I was like, no, I haven't left a really big tip for someone lately. And the version of me who's at the level I desire to be at, she does that really regularly. So I wrote a beautiful tip for this woman who knows what she's up to or going through in her life, but I just had a heart for her and I felt like there was something going on where this would make her day. So those daily micro decisions where you stop in the moment and you say, "Oh, the old version of me would have held back, restricted, done something out of scarcity or fear. Maybe she would have criticized her husband or spouse or partner. But I'm affirming and deciding that I'm a woman or a man who has a different type of light. I have a prosperous marriage and partnership, and I also have a beautiful business, and I travel the world with my kids, and I homeschool them, or I don't." Again, whatever the calling is, make the daily micro decisions that align with that. And what will happen is one day you wake up and it's not all at once. It's not this, "Ah, I'm there." Sometimes I've had that happen before, but I find it's usually more gradual where you wake up and you're no longer triggered by something you would have been triggered by before. Or you have a totally different perspective on something where you had a very locked perspective before. Or there is that unexpected check in your bank account. Or you have a new divine idea and download, and suddenly it's like something that felt like a problem for a long time. You grew beyond it and you see it differently. You've increased your capacity. And now you realize, oh, that's a simple solution. It's a Course in Miracles that says a miracle is just a change in perspective. So you have that miracle moment, that change in perspective. And that's when you realize, oh, I've actually changed. It has become my identity. And because we manifest our results not based on our wants and desires, but based on our identity, when you become the woman or man who sees yourself as a top world thought leader in your space, as a multimillionaire best-selling author, as a really devoted husband or wife or partner to your spouse or father or mother to your kids, who also has a prosperous bank account and serves and changes the world and launches nonprofits. When you see yourself that way, your actions align differently. That starts to feel normal to you. The universe realigns to match that. And it's a beautiful process. That's part of why we do so much work in our community on identity first, action second. And there's a free training you can use to go deeper into this. If you would like, if you go to elisearcher.com/4 quadrants, I'll take you through this method of identity first, action second, so that you can align your heart, your calling, your soul, your passion with your outward results and create those in your life. And it's a beautiful process. So I want to invite you as we close just to really pay attention to, again, what is the whisper that you've been hearing? And I want to encourage you to trust that whisper. That is God, source, universe, the divine coming through you, speaking through you. And your job is to pay attention to that. You will not get external evidence of it until you accept and claim it for yourself. That's how it works. If you would like support in turning your vision into a reality, I want to invite you to book a call with my team, elisearcher.com/free call. We are here for you. We are here to help you stop playing small, to help you accept the calling on your life and to feel safe in the expansion into that as well. And again, whether your calling is you want to launch and build a new successful business, or you want to rise to the top of your corporate sales role, and you want to live a prosperous lifestyle and be there for your family, your friends, your parents, whoever's important to you, we're here to help support you in that. So again, that's elisearcher.com/free call. In closing, my friend, I want to remind you to trust yourself on your path to success. Remember that your desires are green lights, leading you and everyone around you to a brighter future. I'll see you on our next episode.